You want to put your child in a public school, but the public schools in your area are not good, and you're like, no, I don't want to homeschool. I don't want to do online school. I don't want to, pay for private school. You might need to move. Whatever decision it is that you need to make sure that they're able to continue to grow to their potential.
Right. What do you think the biggest misconception that parents have when it comes to, private schools? In our community specifically.
I think that, in terms of misconceptions, parents look at, anything that's going to be private, a private school, a private home school, where you have to pay tuition. They feel like they can't afford it. But it really depends on your perspective, because depending on your situation, it might be that you can't afford not to.
Talk about it.
So if we look at, for example, let's say you have a family and, they're thinking like, okay, Whole Living Academy, y'all gonna be charging something over $300, dollars a month, depending on which program that you're going into with us. And, that's not something that's in my budget. I can just send my child to school for free. If you have a great school in your area, by all means, send your child to school for free. Let them get that public education that your tax dollars pay for, if that is a great school in your area. Like, we are not against public schools, right? But let's say that you're not living in a great area. Let's say that the school that your child is zoned to is not going to meet their specific needs, or that there's a lot of violence that takes place there. There are a lot of negative influences around the community. Let's say that they don't have all the materials that they need within the classroom, or that the classrooms are too overfull and there are 40, 50 children in the classroom and your child is never going to be able to get personalized attention. Then maybe, you need to make a little adjustment here and there, and, maybe you don't have the same frappuccinos, or
right.
Maybe you don't, go to a certain concert, every month or whatever. You make whatever adjustments that you have to, so that your child is able to get what they need to be able to thrive.
Correct.
And not just to, perform on a basic level, or even, now it's really under a basic level. If you look at the statistics right now, most children in the U.S., especially like post that first big wave of COVID, most children in the 3rd grade are not reading fluently. That's not how we grew up. Us that are like in our 30s, like when we were growing up, like if you were in the 3rd grade, you were reading. But with the interruption that happened, because of the pandemic, children coming out of school, the schools not being prepared really to transition to online.
Right.
So they're just like, right. So they're just like, oh, we're just going to review for 2 years. We're not even going to introduce new materials. Some schools did that. Some schools just, kind of threw a bunch of worksheets on, their learning management systems like Schoology. And we're just like, okay, you navigate that, and didn't offer any live classes to support the students. Some schools offered live classes, but only during certain times of day. So they would have like 500 students, in one class, so they could just come in and like, it would be like the whole grade level, just come into that one class, for math. So it's like, okay, y'all got something, but the kids, if you got 500 students in a class, they playing in the chat box.
Yeah, you can't keep
They doing other stuff, They're not really engaging with the material. So a lot of children, and it's not all schools. Some schools handled COVID really well, but most of them didn't. And, so now you have a lot of students who are really behind, so if that's your situation, you may need to transition to homeschool. Maybe you need to transition to homeschool so your children can get where they need to be. And then you can put them back into public school. Some people do that, or maybe, if you have the means and the time, to devote to it, then maybe you just need to, keep them with homeschool, or even with the private school, in your area. But just look at your options and determine what's really going to be best for your child. And that may not always align with what's best for you as an adult. You know, it might not be best for your work schedule. It might not be best for your finances. But if it's what's best for your child, then you make whatever accommodations that you need to make sure that your child is getting what they need.
Right, because they'll pay for it later in life. Either way it goes, it's gonna, you know.
Right, exactly. You know, they'll pay for it, you know, positively or negatively, you know, however you want to take that, you know. So, yeah, definitely. So we just have to decide what's going to be best, again, for each, you know, individual child. And then, you know, make that decision, even if you have to take a different job. Even if, you know, you have to move to a different location. If you want to put your child in a public school, but the public schools in your area are not good, and you're like, no, I don't want to homeschool. I don't want to do online school. I don't want to, you know, pay for private school. You might need to move. Whatever decision it is that you need to make sure that they're able to continue to grow to their potential.
Right.
Because it makes a big difference. And then we look up, you know, and we say like, okay, well, you know, why are so many of our girls going in this direction and, you know, following, I don't even want to name any names, you know, but following the negative role models, or, you know, why is it that, you know, the boys are, you know, I thought I did a good job. I made all these sacrifices. I worked 3 jobs, you know, and now, you know, my son is running with the wrong circles, and, you know, he's just staying at home playing video games all day. It's not always even that they end up like going into the prison system or something. You know, a lot of the kids now, you know, they grow up and they'll be in their 20s and they're just not doing anything with their lives. They're just staying at home, you know, playing on the video games instead of, you know, getting up, getting out and getting something, you know, as the song says, right? And so if you want to avoid that, it's not you going to go work 3 jobs that's going to change it.
That kind of ends the problem to a certain degree.
Right, because then, you know, there's an attention deficit that's happening. You know, they're not getting the attention from you that they really need because, you know, you're always at work, but you're thinking like, oh, this is how I'm going to be able to provide for my child on the highest level. Like, maybe that's not how to provide for your child on the highest level. Maybe you need to look into some alternatives.
Break.